Welcome back, everybody, to our second session on why should I migrate from GP or SL to a cloud solution. I would like to introduce our presenters for this session. So it'll be John Smith, who's our Director of SMB, Global Business Applications and Project Sponsor. So John leads the SMB Business Unit Acquisitive. He joined the company in 2003, formerly Corporate Renaissance Group, and his career spans finance and human resources, including 2 decades of consulting experience. John is both a CPA and a CMA. And our second presenter this morning is Jeff Vonasek. Jeff has been designing, implementing, and supporting a variety of accounting systems for over 30 years. So Jeff is a principal solutions architect for acquisitive ERP offerings. Jeff is certified in Sage Intacct, Microsoft Dynamics SL and GP, Dynamics 365 Business Central, and Uninet project management systems. So welcome, Jeff and John. Over to you for the presentation.
Great, thank you, Angela. I appreciate it. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining our session today. So we're going to start this morning by talking about some of the technology trends that are driving change inside of our industry. I'm going to discuss a couple of topics that you may not have heard of before. You may have heard of some of them, but they are definitely driving change inside of our industry, and they're part of the reason why we think now is the opportune time to consider a move to a cloud-based solution. So when we think about our state of our industry today, we work in cycles today, and our cycles are processing transactions throughout the month, and then we get to a month-end process where we go through a close process, and that close process may take us 10 days, 15 days or so to be able to produce some financials, and then send that data off to the consumers of those financials so that they can make a timely business decision on how to operate the company. A lot of the reasons why we go through those cycles is because of the technologies we use today, and they constrain us to certain things like batching systems. There's latency in data being available and trusted to be able to move forward, and there are technology trends that are changing that for us in the coming future. So there are 3 things I want to talk about today, and the first is the concept of eliminating the close, and this is the idea of doing a close every day, so that I can trust my data better, or can trust it sooner, and then therefore make it available to my consumers of the data on a more timely basis. And the second is then having closed my data every day, having continuous trust in that data. Meaning, if I get a chance to review and audit it every day, I trust it better than if I wait till the end of the month, where I have to go through a process, well-known process where I go to close out my subledgers, tie everything out before I'm ready to produce that data for the consumers of that data. And then finally, having trust in that data, the ability to go ahead and then present it to the consumers of that data in tools that will allow them to use that on a timely basis, be able to visualize that data, be able to manage the business. So this is a quote from Darwin about survival. One note is that we are all given very tough or very tight timelines for our presentation. I've been given a timeline of about 10 minutes for this presentation, so I'm going to sort of blast on through it. That was my budget. And somebody once said to me, that budgets are, they're an orderly way for finding a way to live beyond your means. So I'm going to try to keep within inside my means of those 10 minutes and complete my presentation today in those 10 minutes. So 4 technologies that are driving trends. Now the bottom one, blockchain, is still undecided. It's out there, but it's definitely going to drive business and business processes in the future. But the first 3 are here and now, and I want to talk a little bit about them over the next couple of slides. They are multi-tenancy and what it means to have unlimited power, the ability to use AI and machine learning to improve our processes and to speed up our processes so that we can spend more time analyzing our data. And then finally, analytics that are everywhere, which is the ability to then distribute that information that's maintained in our ERP systems so that people can make a timely business decision upon them. So looking at the evolution of the industry in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we automated accounting solutions. And this was a big change for us. It gave us the ability to get off of the paper-based systems we were using prior to that and be able to automate that. But it was very big, heavy, expensive to be able to do so. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s came the advent of client-server computing systems. These are the systems that we know and love today, GP and SL. These systems brought that computing power down to the masses. They were created to run on PCs and then finally networked together, a little tenuous in their networking capabilities, but essentially took what was all mainframe power and moved it down to every organization so that they could run their accounting systems and be able to enjoy that data. In the 90s and the 2000s, we focused on then moving that data to a hosted type solution. Part of what we were trying to do was to remove the need to maintain these tenuous pieces of hardware that were failing and so on and so forth, so building redundancy into it, and really setting off the management of those systems to another organization who would make sure it stayed up by 24/7. And then for the last 15 years or so, the industry has been focused on moving to multi-tenant or cloud-based solutions. So these are systems in which everybody resides on the same version of the software. So we're breaking the upgrade chain, which we use today. If you have a GP or SL system, you just don't install the latest version. We got to spend some time thinking about how to do it, what impact does it have on the other systems. These cloud-based solutions, everybody is on the same version, and they're all updated at the same time and guaranteed to be backwardly compatible. And when I say updated at the same time, I really mean updated at the same time. You go home on a Friday evening, you come home on a Monday morning, you go back to work on a Monday morning, and you get a splash when you sign into your accounting system that says, hey, your system was updated. You're now on release 2023 Rev 3. Here are some of the new features. Would you like to see a video on that? So the idea of everybody being on the same version at the same time really breaks that upgrade structure. It also gives us the opportunity to then deliver more feature functionality that we couldn't have done in the past because of the hardware that we were limited into. And so just looking at a little bit of the metrics of those systems today, enormous processing power. So these systems are maintained by Microsoft, Sage Intacct, and other systems as well. These systems are built specifically to maintain and manage large volumes of data. And that gives us the opportunity to use some feature functionality that wasn't really available to us in the client server environment because we didn't have the power to be able to do so. So what does that mean to have unlimited computing power? What does it mean to you? So the first is scalability. That's the ability to expand or grow your processing power to whatever your business cycle is. So if you have a process where you process a bunch of your invoices the first 3, 4, 5, 6 days of a month, the systems will expand and give you that power as you need it and then contract back. And it happens all automated and you don't need to necessarily pay for building a system that you really need for just 3 days. And then the rest of the month, you don't need that kind of processing power. The other thing that that power gives you is the ability to analyze each of the transactions every day as they go. We work on batch processing systems today. These are really built from mainframe and mini-based solutions where processing power is very expensive, and therefore the most efficient way to get it into the system was to batch it up and go ahead and send it in. Cloud-based systems are almost all transactional, meaning they're real-time. Data goes in real-time, and the data is then reviewed real-time, and you are able to address and correct it. Zero latency in analytics, and so what we're getting at to there is having the data going in and being reviewed. It's available immediately to tools like visualization tools or reporting tools for your end users to be able to report off of it and make those timely business decisions. And then finally, massive data sets for some of the new tools like machine learning and AI. One of the things about these tools is they require large data sets to be very useful because they got to see lots of different patterns of what's going on with your organization to understand whether this transaction looks a little funny or not. And that's really what AI is doing for you. It's looking at all the transactions you post every day, and it says, that looks like all the other ones you did last month and the month before. But this one here is really interesting. I think you should spend some time taking a look at it. The department doesn't appear to go properly with this type of expense. And that's really what AI is doing for us. And what that then leads us to is this concept of continuous close. Because if AI is artificial intelligence, when I say AI, if AI is reviewing each and every one of your transactions and pointing out to you the outliers, you then have the opportunity to correct that when it happens, the day it happens or the next day, if you get a report for it, but to correct it then, not wait to the end of the month where you do some testing and then identify, hey, there was a problem, I need to go back and reclassify it. You do it right then and there. And the idea is that you then gain trust in your data every day as you build it, and you're being fed the outliers that need to be addressed, and everything that it's seen before and knows and recognizes, you don't need to worry about. It's handled by the system. It says, look, just like a transaction I did before, that's fine. You don't necessarily need to look at that. You can trust that. And then what that should do is move us to accelerating the time that we can use that data and be able to create actionable insights. So the current processing, but what we like to think of the old way is that, we go through a cycle, month-end cycle. We get to the end of the month. We then make sure we gather all our transactions. We then run control reports. We know the areas we need to focus on to make sure that those areas tie out. We identify discrepancies. We correct and reverse those. And because of the volume of the data, we can't test all of our data, right? We have to look at summaries of data and identify discrepancies and then drill down and drill down and drill down. So we're not looking at all of our data, and we're doing it after the fact. We're doing it the next day. We're doing it at the end of the month. And so what that results in is periodic trust of our data. And I hear this all the time, people saying, hey, look, I'm not going to produce a mid-month financial because I haven't had a chance to look at the data. I don't understand it. I haven't tied it out. I'm not going to give it to somebody so that they can make a business decision on something that is false because it was coded incorrectly. We're now moving towards real-time and continuous trust of that data, meaning audit every single transaction. Because of these massive systems and massive data sets, we have the power to do that. We don't have the power to do that in client-server-based solutions. And that's part of the reason why all the major manufacturers are all moving towards cloud-based solutions, the ability to bring to bear these new tools, which will change the way that we process things and the way that our workflow processes. And then finally, course correcting, we get continuous trust. So having continuous trust, we now have the ability to display that information to users who can consume that data and make a timely business decision. These are visualization tools, some of which you're going to see over the next day or couple of days. Power BI is Microsoft's tool. Visualizer is Sage Intacct's tool. But these are tools that are embedded into the system and report directly from the system. Now, there's an important note there because historically, visualization tools were separate and discrete tools, which required you extracting data out of your accounting system and putting it into a data warehouse of some sort, and then visualizing that data and presenting it out. And so that means that the data was not always necessarily timely. It might have been as of last night, but it wasn't always necessarily timely. These visualization tools are all built into the cloud solution, reading directly from the accounting data. So there's no need to necessarily wait for that latency of data. And that gives us the ability to then use this to see day-to-day type operations. What do I need to work on now? What are my outstanding payables? What are my outstanding receivables? Do I need to work on collecting that? Then hunting and finding things like what do I need to optimize my process? Why do I find my sales process sort of slows down at this in this level or this process inside the organization? And then these tools also give us the ability to predict the future. So they then use predictive analysis to look at patterns of what happened in the past and what's happening this month and projecting where you might be the end of this month, the end of this year. All of these analytical tools are available to us. And so, again, this is a sea change in the type of tools that we use. So the old tools were very complex, required very specialists to be able to build visualizations for you. They were purpose driven, and then they were secured by they were limited by their security. And what I mean by that is it extracted the data out of your accounting system. You've moved away from the security model, meaning who can see what, that you built into your accounting system. And now you need to build a second security model inside of your visualization tool to see who can see what. Well, these systems are honoring the security models that you build into your accounting system. And oh, by the way, the old way that we used to do it, quite often what happened is the data was so sensitive that they really restricted who could look at those visualization tools, because they really couldn't trust whether somebody could see something they weren't supposed to see or not. And so we had this great visualization tool that we couldn't distribute out to the masses because it required too much to maintain these security models. These visualization tools are all built inside the environment. They observe the security models of your accounting system. And therefore, you don't need to maintain two different sets of rules, two different sets of security. You maintain one, and it's used across and throughout the system. Excuse me. And because they are pulling data, or they are visualizing data directly from your accounting systems, you also have the ability to then drill down into the details, to get back to the original transaction, look at the attachment, find out why this thing got posted to that expense account, and to be able to make a business decision on whether it's right or wrong, or whether I need to do something about it. So in summary, these trends, artificial intelligence, multi-tenancy, and massive computing power, are bringing change to our industry. And that change is the ability to shrink our close time, because in the role that I have, I've had a chance to meet with a lot of CFOs, a lot of controllers, and I bet you every single one of them would say, if I could take my close cycle from 15 days and shrink it to 5, or I can take 10 and shrink it to 2, then that would be of great value to my organization, because I can deliver that information to consumers of that data in a more timely fashion. All powered by AI, who can then, using those massive data sets and looking at all your historical data, be able to make determinations about the transactions that are happening today and whether you should look at them more closely and get them resolved. It moves trust in your data from periodic, meaning I got to wait to the end of the month to be able to trust that data, to I can trust the data from yesterday because it's been reviewed by AI, and I've corrected any of the inconsistencies of that data. And then in general, or in a broader sense, it moves us from tactical to strategic, meaning we spent the last 10, 20, 30 years collecting large volumes of data, but we have not really used it tremendously well. We do, some organizations do, but we're now moving towards now using that data, spending more time analyzing that data to determine how we can adjust the course or change our operations or our business to improve our performance overall. So these technologies are all driving change inside of our industry, and they are all powered by the cloud. We can't do this. We don't have the horsepower or the money to build the horsepower inside of our client server-based solutions to be able to use these tools. They can only be delivered in the cloud with massive computing power. So something to think about. It's now my pleasure to introduce John Smith, who will discuss with you some of the promises of the cloud. John?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it, and great presentation. I'm going to pick up where Jeff left off, and Jeff, we'll go ahead and flip the slide there. So let's just talk briefly here about the promises of the cloud. And when we're having discussions with clients and prospects about either the Microsoft or Sage solution, I mean, the big benefits that come out of this are things like what we're looking at now, where a lot of what Jeff just talked about, analytics and insight, is really important. But I'd say three major ones are, first, staying current on the latest technology. And when we talk about staying current on the latest technology, these are very modern applications. Latest technology means that, okay, we do upgrades once or twice a year and you automatically get them. It's not every 3 years having to do a big upgrade cycle, but there's more to it than that. This is modern, right? And it's continually developed. So if you attended Lane's kickoff meeting this morning, right? In the case of our Microsoft solution with Dynamics, he talked about how artificial intelligence is going to be part of and an increasing part of the Dynamics solution as Microsoft moves forward. Power BI and of course our visualizer and Sage Intacct are important pieces of this. The look and feel of the products are very different, right? They're modern. The big three that stand out for me are the mobile capability and user interface, user experience. They're all workflow driven now, so lots of control in there as well, which is really important, and obviously the business intelligence layer. I think the other theme we talk about a lot is freeing up cost and resources, and we're going to talk about that in the slides that come just briefly. And obviously, the whole security layer, access, security, privacy, and reliability. You know, the cloud architecture that these products sit on is built to scale, and it's built to scale customers. And to do that, you have to have excellent privacy and security safeguards. I did a presentation last year with Microsoft with a client, and they were so bold to say to the client who wanted to stay on-prem with everything that you will never be able to match our privacy and security that we have built into our cloud infrastructure. So, you know, it is world-class. Jeff, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So I think key benefits, right? First is software as a service. So think of this, right? You're really now sitting in a delivery with best-in-class, state-of-the-art data centers, right? And all the security that comes behind that. It's something your organization no longer has to think about or take on because your users are simply going to access the applications using a browser. And you're going to have this trusted infrastructure on the Sage or Microsoft side in the background, making sure that all your data is safeguarded, it's backed up, and you know, it's not something you ever have to worry about again. And I think that's a big part of what we talk about with this outsourced expertise is that you know, our hardware, our IT, our CapEx, all of that leaves, and we're just paying a monthly fee. And really what that's doing is it's lowering your total cost of ownership when you look at it, right? You're not buying servers, you're not buying SQL every 3 to 5 years. You're not doing upgrades every 2 to 3 years to stay current on the latest technology. And you know, the old iceberg image there is one that's very popular with the vendors, where you know what you really see with on-prem is just, hey, it looks like you're just paying for licensing, but there is a lot of costs in the background to maintain data centers and infrastructure. And obviously on the cloud computing side, you know, Microsoft or Sage is taking care of that back end. So lower total cost of ownership is important. Reduced implementation time and cost. I mean, I think the big thing we'll say here is that when we go in to do an implementation, you know, within an hour, your site is up and running, and our folks can get in there and start configuring the system. You know, we're not doing hardware deployments like we used to. And so that cost comes out of the implementation. And it really gets us focused, laser focused on our process of requirements, solution design, configuration, training, and ultimately go live. And this is reducing implementation time and cost, which is a big benefit to the cloud migration. Obviously, turning variable costs into fixed costs. So what we're really talking about here is, you know, it's predictable now, right? It's a user-based licensing model, and it's, you know, transparent and open, and you know what it is, and you'll be able to budget and predict that. The other thing is, in the case of our SMB products, it's really nice, is you've got unlimited growth and scalability. And, you know, what that means is you can add users as you need to add users, right? And you don't have to worry about, you know, hardware in the background being able to keep up, or if you make an acquisition of another company and you want to bring it in, what's that going to mean? You know, that's all taken care of through your cloud subscription. So again, another big benefit there. So, you know, when we come back to just in summary, I'd say the top benefits of the cloud ERP, subscription pricing, SaaS delivery, obviously the outsourced expertise or outsourcing all of the infrastructure, the total cost of ownership, reduced implementation time and cost, the predictability of your spend, and on-demand scalability. And as we started with, you know, staying current on a modern platform. These are big drivers, and certainly what we've seen over, you know, I think in our case is probably over the last 5 to 7 years as we've moved clients progressively from on-premise solutions into the cloud. You know, this is all the stuff that they're interested in. All right, so at this point, I think that concludes our presentation. We'll hand it back to Angela.
Thank you very much, John and Jeff. Appreciate that great presentation. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have any other questions about this session or anything, please feel free to get in touch with us, and we'd certainly be happy to discuss it with you. And thank you again for joining us for the session. Thank you very much, John and Jeff.